Solubility is the amount of solute able to dissolve into a solvent. Solubility is able to be measured in many different methods. We have decided to check the solubility of salt in liquids at different pH levels. pH levels are given to a lot of foods and liquids. pH ranges on a scale of 1 to 14, 1 to 6 being acids, 7 being neutral, and 8 to 14 being bases. At different pH levels, liquids can become more or less soluble.
We've decided to test if salt will be able to dissolve in liquids at different pH levels. We are curious if we test an acid or a base, which will be more soluble. Our hypothesis is that if we dissolve 10 milliliters of salt in different solvents at different pH levels, then acids will be able to dissolve more of the salt.
In order to do this experiment, we had to test each liquid's pH level. Then, we had to measure out 100 milliliters of each solvent we used. We decided to test water with a pH of 7, vinegar with a pH of 3, sodium hydroxide with a pH of 13, coffee with a pH of 5, and ammonia with a pH of 10. With all of these, we added 10 milliliters of salt. We measured the amount of salt in grams, subtracted the weight of the cup, then added pinches of salt into the solvent. We would then mix it until all solute dissolved and repeated this process until the salt dissolved or stopped dissolving in each solvent.
We then recorded how much salt was left over in each cup of salt in our results, subtracted the weight of the cup, then noticed that all solvents tested could dissolve the 10 milliliters of salt no matter what its pH level was. Both acids, bases, and neutral liquids were capable of dissolving 10 milliliters of salt. We found that our hypothesis was rejected. We predicted that acids would have the ability to dissolve more salt, but ultimately, we discovered that both acids and bases could equally dissolve the salt.
Our table shows that at all different pH levels, we could dissolve the given amount of salt. Our graph also shows that at relatively similar amounts of salt, each solvent could dissolve the salt given. All of the dots on the graph were the same amount of salt as was in the cup. If we could try this experiment again, I think it would be interesting to increase the amount of salt used to see if more salt would saturate the solvent. Then, our hypothesis could be possibly accepted or rejected. In the end, it was a good idea to test multiple liquids on all ranges of the pH scale so we could get accurate results. We found all equally dissolved the salt, but it could have ended otherwise.